one of the world's best, joining us right now on the program. He's a household name. You've seen him, you've heard him. Michio Kaku, theoretical physicist at City College in New York, my alma mater in my undergraduate years. Best-selling author, co-founder of string field theory, and such. And his books include many, many bestsellers that you may have read. And he joins us now on the Savage Nation to talk about parallel dimensions. Dr. Kaku, welcome to the Savage Nation. Thank you so much for being with us.
Yeah, glad to be on the show in 3 dimensions.
Well, look, you're the real McCoy, and we're not physicists. Some of us can read science, but theoretical physics is another world. Is there any possibility there could be a parallel universe or universes, Doctor?
Well, believe it or not, this is what I do professionally. And if you watch the Big Bang Theory, you know that Sheldon works on string theory. And I'm one of the early pioneers in string theory. I'm the founder of string field theory, one of the main branches of string theory. And string theory says that we live in maybe 10, maybe 11-dimensional hyperspace. And that parallel universes, we're talking about a multiverse of parallel universes, not just 1 or 2, but a landscape of parallel universes. So we could be having this very same conversation in another parallel universe, except there are 3 of us or 4 of us online instead of just 2.
Oh, God. Isn't it enough that it's just the 2 of us? So what does that do for our consciousness, Dr. Kaku? What does it do for our consciousness? Are we now to believe that we're living somewhere else at the same time?
Well, you know, our senses tell us that we can go forward, backward, left, right, up, down, and 3 dimensions is all there is. Maybe a 4th if you include time. But we think that at the beginning of the universe, when the universe was created, the universe existed in perhaps 11-dimensional hyperspace, and that our universe is a bubble. A bubble is expanding. We live on the skin of the bubble, and that's called the Big Bang Theory. But the new theory says that there are other bubbles out there creating a bubble bath of universes called the multiverse. And yes, it means that universes could be formed even as we speak. Even as we speak, somewhere in the cosmos, a Big Bang has taken place, and a baby universe has just gotten off the ground. In fact, Stephen Hawking, my colleague, when he was alive, he talked about baby universes being born somewhere in the cosmos, so far away that we can't measure it directly. But that's what the theory says. The theory says there should be other universes out there. And at the electron level, at the subatomic level, electrons can be 2 places at the same time. In fact, this is the famous Schrodinger cat problem, that if you put a cat in a box and you're not allowed to open the box, the cat could be dead and alive simultaneously. And it's not until you open the box that you really know the cat is dead or alive, which means that, believe it or not, that people who have died in our universe could be alive in another parallel universe. Now, that doesn't mean we can talk to them. That doesn't mean you're going to talk to Elvis Presley. That doesn't mean you can move between universes. Of course, that's extremely hard. But it does mean that, yes, physics entertains the possibility that there could be a multiverse, a landscape.
So wait, Dr. Kaku, so let's tie religion in for a minute. Everyone thinks about their own mortality, some on a more regular basis than others. I've been obsessed with it since I'm 5 years old. Some religions tell us there's an afterlife. Would your theory tend to support the concept that there could be a so-called afterlife?
Well, it supports the idea that in our universe, the universe that you can see and touch, that when you die, unfortunately, your atoms will decay and you will then drift into dust. As the Bible says, from dust to dust, ashes to ashes. But as you move, your body splits into parallel universes. These are called quantum universes. And we measure this with electrons all the time. That's why we have lasers. That's why we have the Internet. That's why we have this phone conversation. The entire electronic structure of the Internet is based on parallel universes. So it means that your carbon copies of your body could be peeling off and creating other copies of you. And in those universes, perhaps you do survive. Perhaps you do live on much longer than you do in our universe. But as far as our universe is concerned, the universe that you see when you look in a mirror, when you die, perhaps your atoms will disintegrate and you will turn to dust. Sorry about that.
No. Look, I have a friend who's a very, well, let's say well-educated medical doctor, a PhD, and a neuropsychiatrist, and he says, I don't believe in God, I don't believe in an afterlife. He said, when the electricity stops in your brain, you're dead. Would you argue that that's not necessarily true?
Well, I would argue that in our universe, the universe that you can see and touch, that you see in a mirror, that when you die, chances are your atoms will disintegrate and you'll turn to dust, okay? But like I said, you exist in multiple states. When you look in a mirror, you're taking an average over thousands of different universes. And in some of the universes, you decided to go to school, you decide to marry this person, you decide to change careers. And in these other parallel universes, you could survive, perhaps, even if you are dying in this universe. So it means that people you know and love that have died in our universe are not necessarily dead in other universes. Now, the trick is, and there's always a catch, the trick is to go between universes requires a technology far beyond anything that we can muster with our puny internet and our puny atomic bombs.
But wait, but Dr. Kaku, this is fascinating to me. So it means that our, quote, schizophrenics, some of whom are seriously ill, hospitalized, medicated, do you think it's possible that some of these, quote, schizophrenics are actually existing or seeing these other dimensions?
Well, like I said, we no longer vibrate in unison with Elvis Presley. So there is a universe where Elvis Presley is still alive. That universe has decohered from our universe. We no longer vibrate. Think of a radio. A radio tunes into one frequency, but it has a probability of tuning into any frequency you want. The difference is that you are now tuned to one frequency, but not the other frequencies. So in other words, at the beginning of time, all these universes could have been one, but we have since peeled off. The timeline has split, which means that it's very difficult to go between timelines. That, of course, would require technology far beyond anything that we can muster. But the equations of quantum theory says that electrons do this all the time. That's why we have the internet. That's why we have lasers. But we consist of trillions of electrons, and we average over trillions of electrons, and that's why we are no longer vibrating in unison with Elvis Presley. So,
Dr. Kaku, you're a theoretical physicist, you're a world-famous author, you're the co-founder of string field theory, a branch of string theory. When you were a boy, if you don't mind, when you were a boy, you must have been a very deep thinker, you must have thought about the meaning of life and death. Is that how you wound up in theoretical physics, or what drove you into that field?
Well, you know, I was brought up as a Presbyterian, but my parents were Buddhists. And in Buddhism, there is no Big Bang, there's no God, there's no beginning or end. In the Presbyterian Church, there is a beginning. So there's two diametrically opposed points of view. But with the multiverse idea, we can now combine these 2 points of view into one. You see, our universe had a Big Bang. Our universe did have a beginning, but our bubble universe coexists with other universes in a bubble bath of universes, and they're floating in nirvana, that is 11-dimensional hyperspace. And so, in other words, our universe had a Big Bang, had a beginning, but there are other universes that are being formed all the time, and they exist in nirvana. Nirvana is hyperspace. Nirvana is the larger arena in which these bubbles can float. And when these bubbles bump into other bubbles or peel off a baby bubble, that's called the Big Bang. That explains the origin of the universe. Our universe was created, perhaps, when two bubbles collided to create a bigger bubble, which is our universe.
We're speaking with Dr. Michio Kaku, and it got triggered by the tabloid story the other day on parallel dimensions that are possible in reversing time. On a pragmatic level, a practical level, Dr. Kaku, I read this morning that Satellites and spacecraft malfunction as Earth's magnetic field mysteriously weakens. What do you think is causing the weakening of the Earth's magnetic field?
First of all, the story is absolutely true. The magnetic field of the Earth does wander. It wanders several miles every day, in fact. And it also is decreasing in intensity. We can actually compare it using the measurement of magnetism centuries ago by the ancient mariners. We know that it's weakening and it's wandering, and there could be a flip at a certain point. Now, this is not the geologic pole of the Earth. If that were to flip, we'd be flinging to outer space and doomsday. We're talking about the magnetic poles shifting. And we know that when you go to Hawaii and you dig into the lava flows, lava, when it solidifies, seals in the direction of the North Pole. Thereby, simply digging into the lava of Hawaii, you can actually see layer by layer the flipping of the direction of the North Pole. So it could be potentially dangerous in the sense that without a magnetic field, we're going to be hit with cosmic rays, solar flares from the sun, but it probably won't happen for a few more centuries.
Oh, thank God.
Something that we are looking at very seriously. The magnetic field of the Earth is shifting, it's moving, and it's getting weaker. And at some point, it will go to zero, in which case cosmic rays will come down to the Earth, and, some of us may have to, go underground.
I may have to move to another dimension where it's safer. Dr. Kaku, religion. Is religion completely fraudulent in your mind? No, let's put it another way. Is it possible, given your thinking, your research, your ability to see into dimensions we can't see, those of us who are not theoretical physicists, because you folks do live in another world. In your world, could a God exist?
Well, St. Thomas Aquinas, several hundred years ago, had 5 proofs of the existence of God, 2 of which are seriously being looked at even today. The teleological proof of the existence of God is that you have to have a first designer. Every time you see something, you assume that it's designed, but who designed the designer? The ultimate designer is God, said St. Thomas Aquinas. Today, we think that perhaps evolution can give us the diversity of life. However, the cosmological proof of the existence of God still stands today after hundreds of years of challenges. And that's the cosmological proof, that everything had to have something to set it into motion. But what caused that to move? Something had to kick that into motion. So there had to be a first mover. Well, today we think that the first mover was the Big Bang, but then the question is, where did the Big Bang come from?
All right. I remember being 5 years old and talking about this with my cousin up until late at night, and we never could figure that one out. If you've got another quick second, you are continuing Einstein's search to unite the 4 fundamental forces of nature into one unified theory. If I remember my reading the populist Einstein, he said that the more he studied the outer limits of our universe, the more he realized there had to be a God or a starter of it all. Is that true?
Well, he believed that there were 2 kinds of God. One is the God that you pray to, the personal God, the God that smites the Philistines. He believed in the God of Spinoza, that is the God of beauty, harmony. The universe is gorgeous. It didn't have to be that way. The universe could have been ugly, random, chaotic. We could do this for another half an hour. Unfortunately, given the dimension that I live in, I have to take a quick break for some commercial messages, or else I won't even be in